Hello YouTube friends, the main video is coming up in a moment, but before it starts I just wanted to say all of us all over the world are thinking so much about the people of Ukraine and the poor innocent people of Russia too, many of whom don't want this to be happening. But the people who are suffering at the hands of this terrible situation that's going on in Ukraine, many people all over the internet are using their platforms like I am now to spread goodwill and to offer their comfort and support to anybody who's affected by this. But also there are some people who are doing some amazing things. Arne and Carlos, for instance, if you pop over to their channel, they're doing anybody who buys their pattern, a beautiful pattern, by the way, it's far out of my league, that kind of knitting, but anybody who buys that, 100% of the proceeds will be donated to charity. Over Instagram, over YouTube, all over the place, there are people who are responding to this terrible crisis by offering their support and their love. Maybe you don't know that once a month I do a charity donation to a different charity, something that I'm particularly concerned about. So if you wanted to find out about that, over on the newsletter is when we tell you which charity it is each month. And for March, the charity is definitely going to be something concerned with supporting the people of Ukraine. You'll be able to read about that in the newsletter when we've decided who that money is going to go to. This is from the ad revenue that you good people, by watching the videos, you generate that. And I give that money to a charity each month. So I just wanted to pop here and say that. And now the main video, which is it's a frivolous thing. It's all about chairs, and it's coming up now. Thank you. Hello YouTube friends. I'm all about green today. I'm surrounded by lots of green fabric that's left over from a quilt that I've just finished. I've got loads of lovely little bits of green. And the job that I'm doing today has been on my to-do list for, well, a couple of years. But that's fine because bits have added to it over the time and my ideas about it have changed a little bit. So what I'm doing today is, if you remember way back in the mists of time, I made some kit chairs from IKEA. I painted the first two I bought sort of an acidy yellow, and then a year or so later I bought two more, maybe even 2 years later, and I made two more that I painted pink. I painted them out in the pavilion, if I remember rightly. What I'm going to do is make a chairs playlist. I think there'll only be 2 or 3 videos on that, but I'll leave it on the end card at the end so that if you wanted to look at the beginning of this project, you could. Now, I've been stitching little squares together and making the cushion pads, and also I'll show you this one here, it's right beside me. I like to make a thing that goes on the back of the chair, just makes it look very pretty. This one is lots of beautiful Kaffe Fassett, a few tulip pinks in there, whatever I had at the time, put together in this lovely green wash of colour. The back of this one is pieced as well, and because I've just finished making that quilt, I made it over on Patreon and it's gone to its new home now. Not disturbing you, are we? I had all these amazing greens, and these were the scraps and bits that were left over. So this is like the back of the quilt that I made. Maybe I'll put a picture in here so that you can see that this is like my mini back of the quilt. And on the front of this then is all these lovely green squares. Now, I have made and completed 3 of the chairs, and I have the 4th one to complete. And at the end of this, I'll show you all 4 of them and the decisions I made about how I was going to make them. This is not going to be helpful, Cat Rita, because I'm about to start cutting this fabric now. I'm on the last piece now. I think it was last night that I finished piecing together. Now, I've pieced this seat cover together here, all the seats and the cushions and the pads and the back, everything. They've all been English paper pieced. Now you look at something like this, which is like, you know, 3.5, 4-inch square, and you think, well, can't you just sew that on the machine? Well, yes, I could, but doing it this way with the papers in the back here, it means that I've got a degree of accuracy that I'm really like a lot. It also means that I could measure it exactly to the size that I needed. These are 16-inch square cushion pads that I'm using. But also I like English paper piecing, as you can see behind me. So what I'm doing at the moment then is the final thing that I have done with each of these cushion pads is I've put a bit of quilting in, which just it's not it is like a quilt, I guess, isn't it? Yes, it is. It's exactly like a quilt. So if you move your paws, please, I want to actually cut this without cutting your paws. We're going to manage that. Oh, you think this is a great game, don't you? Yes, you do. Okay, there's a short pause here while we play with the cat. Bit of editing now, because she's very sweet. Just a word about this cat. All the years that Norma would come and do this on the YouTubes, this cat was here. I can't believe this cat's just taken on that role so completely. Oh, look at her. Isn't she completely relaxed? But you know something? You're a time waster. Yeah, I'm going to need you to move. I really am. I don't want to cut your ear. How could you move a beautiful cat like this? It's your turn, isn't it? Your time has come. But I am going to move you because I want to do this next thing. Now, where's the other piece of fabric? There it is. Good girl. Good girl. That's great. Thank you. Watch your paws. Whoops. Okay. So that's a bit of wadding that I've just got there. Now, what I need to do then, and I know I haven't left masses of space around the outside. I don't need to do that. I'm going to be sewing it onto the backing soon. But I need to take the papers out. I've got the piece of fabric that's going to be the quilt sandwich. It's a tiny quilt I'm making here, isn't it? So I've got that little piece there, and I can just feel exactly where that needs to be. There we go. You're going to settle down in that big pile of fabric. And what I'm going to do now then, I've pressed this. Come on, I need you to move. Good girl. There you are. Good girl. Good girl. Tail out of the picture, please. Go on, all the way. Good girl. I've pressed this really well so that the edges here are nicely creased, so that when I take these papers out, it's going to stay together long enough for me to quilt it. I'm going to use pins to pin it together. Okay, so you can see what I'm doing there, can't you? There's a glasses on job. And with English paper piecing like this, you could, as long as it's a geometric shape, round shapes don't work like this, or curved shapes, but you can sew the papers any shape at all. You can make them any shape you like. Okay, so threads out first. Make a little pile of them. It gets messy here. Those threads get in your vacuum cleaner, don't they? And they go all around the bottom bit there. I have to spend ages picking them all off. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to take all the threads out of the papers first. It's very satisfying when you can just do it in one pull. Okay, so now all the stitching's out, I can just slide the papers out, making sure that the edge seams stay nice and flat. Now, if you sew these carefully, you don't catch the paper at all. You can reuse these, but these were cut for this purpose only. And so I'm not going to need this size paper again, and it's just an old catalogue. It'd be really, really easy to cut some more if ever I needed them. Oh, missed one here. Now I want to be careful now to keep all these edges nicely turned under. And what I'm going to do now is just flip this over onto the batting, wadding, whatever you call it. So now, paying attention to the edges, I'm going to just use a few pins to do my tiny little quilt sandwich. And I'm not going to do much quilting on this. I think I'll just stitch in the ditch in both directions. It's just to hold it in, really. You can barely see the quilt marks on the other cushions. It's just a nice little finishing touch. This is probably why it's taken me this long, because this whole process seems to be all about finishing touches. So I'm just going to crack on and stitch quite big, bold quilting stitches in the ditch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines, and that'll be enough. I guess I could do some quilting in between. Let's see how I feel. So I've finished the quilting on the front, the cushion front, the seat, and now I've trimmed down the wadding. I'll trim that down again, but what I'm doing now I've explained how I make envelope back cushions many times on the channel, and maybe leave a link. I'll maybe leave a link to that on the end card as well, because it's just a simplest way of making two pieces of fabric overlap one another here, so that you make a lovely envelope like that. And then this is the tricky, it's not tricky, this is the fiddly thing that I do with these cushions now, and I'm fairly certain there's a lot of much easier ways of doing this, but I've done the other three this way, and so I think I'm going to carry on and do it this way. I'm just going to, I've pinned the backing onto the cushion pad, and I'm going to stitch this now getting all those layers in so that the whole thing's held together. There are better ways of doing this, I know there are. I could probably run a machine stitch around it and nobody would be any the wiser, but I would lose a little tiny bit of my accurately cut sized paper, accurately sized fabric, wouldn't I? I know what I mean. Do you know what I mean? What I'm going to do now though, and I'm listening to some lovely music, I'm listening to the Lord of the Rings soundtrack, because it's ages since I listened to that, and I'm listening to that and I'm going to hand stitch this whole thing down, and I'll show you when I get to the end of that. I hope some of that made sense, but you'll see it at the end. You'll see very clearly at the end how this looks and why I wanted to hand sew it. So let me show you what I've done to finish this off then. I've stitched all the way around the inside, and there's two little ties here. I'll show you those in a minute. But what I have done, just to be absolutely certain that this all going to stay together, I've done one row of machine stitching, just a tiny whisker off the main patchwork. So it's nice and secure now. So I'm going to turn it the right way around, and now here are the ties. These are the bits that are going to tie around the back of the chair seat to hold it in place. And what I need to do is just get my scissors and poke these corners out, because I did cut the corners off so that they, across, so that they wouldn't be too bulky. So I'll get this one here. Now I'm going to give it a little press now that I've finished sewing it all around. It didn't take that long, and I really do like hand stitching. It's nice to do. So I'm going to just get that one out with my finger first. There we go. And then the envelope back works brilliantly for the cushion to go inside, but I'm just going to press round these edges now so that it lies nice and flat. Just a little press, don't have to go too crazy. Okay, let's get rid of the iron. Here's my cushion. It's a 16-inch cushion pad filled with feathers. Now, it's a bit plumptious, but it will flatten down. If you see some of the other ones in a minute when I show you those, you'll see that it actually does flatten down. One good way of putting this on, so that you're not putting too much strain on the way you've sewn these bits together, is to fold the top bit out and fit your cushion in, especially if it's going to be a bit plump and tight like this one is. And then you put your two corners in like so. And then you can just fold this top part over. So it's still a little bit of a struggle, but once it's on, it's on. There we go. And then lots of easing and thumping and flattening. You'll see on some of the other cushions I've made just how when you sit on this, especially if you sit on it, if you use it often, you sit on it a lot, then it will go into a nice cushion pad instead of a big plump cushion. So that's how that looks now. Let's put it on the chair. There we go. And these go around the back like this and tie up. Oh yeah, they're plenty long enough. Well, here they are in all their glory, all finished, and a set of 4. I'm really pleased with them, and I'll tell you about them one at a time. So I think the first one, yes, I think this might have been the first one I finished. And this one is Kaffe Fassett red, pink and green checkerboard, and a nice green back there. This one's probably been finished a couple of years, and so this cushion pad's nice and flat, like that. So that's a good one, the yellow one there. So this one is very red indeed. So look at this one. This has got beautiful reds and pinks, and the back of this one is pieced as well, so that when you see through the back of the chair, it looks kind of interesting too. And this one's beautiful, again, Kaffe Fassett fabrics, lovely. That one's been made quite a while, but the pink chairs haven't been made that long. This is an interesting one to talk about though, because this chair, I think the blue looks great on the pink. I hope you agree. Now, a few years ago I made a flying goose quilt. It's on the channel, it's somewhere back in the playlist somewhere, and I used Merchant and Mills fabric, which is they do beautiful fabrics, all different sorts of fabrics, but this particular line that they do is Indian block printed fabric. It's absolutely beautiful, and so I made that flying goose quilt, and I had lots and lots of little bits left over. Now I pieced, these are the same size squares, and I pieced these squares together, always imagining that I would make a cushion for the sitting room. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought it really would look nice on a chair. The back of this one here is, I'll take it off so that you can see it. You could almost turn it round, couldn't you? This is loads and loads of stripy bits. But the back of it is striped fabric, all pieced together so that it's got a lovely kind of crazy form to it. And then this one here has got some of the Merchant and Mills block printed fabric for the back here. You never see the back, but it's nice to make something of the back. And I finished this one only a few days ago, which is what made me think that I needed to keep going and finish this one. So this is the one I've just finished. These lovely greens that go beautifully, these sort of yellowy greens that go beautifully with the yellow of the chair. And I think as a set of 4 they look great together. I'm really pleased that I finally got them all how I want them to look. Now, so in the original series about these chairs, I made socks for their feet. Of course I did, because it stops them from scratching the floor. And why wouldn't you want socks on your chairs? Now, I haven't got enough socks, so I need to start knitting some socks again for chairs. I need to knit quite a lot of socks. So that's going to be the next task, and then the chairs really will be finished when they've all got their socks on and they're all sitting around the table in the kitchen. I'm very, very pleased with this finish. There's a very big tick I can do off my to-do list. So I hope maybe I've inspired you to make some hand-pieced, hand-quilted, hand-stitched chair backs and chair seats for your special chairs. These chairs weren't that special. They were just a kit from IKEA, very cheap, painted up. I've had lots of fun making these, and I remember all the different stages. Which one's your favourite?